Capital Regional Transportation Agency, Planning Agency to order. Today is March 19th, a little past 1:30. We do not have our chair here, so I am going to entertain a motion to have a fill-in for us.
Who is that person?
You.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. All right,
Any
let's get back to
opposed?
the good old days.
There you go. We're going to have a quick meeting. Thank you for doing that.
Did I get a plaque after
Yes.
the meeting today?
You get a vase.
Twice, Chairman?
You get a vase. We're doing away with the plaques.
All right, let's have our roll call.
Commissioner Barfield,
Here.
Commissioner McMillan,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner Daly,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson. Thank you.
Any agenda modification?
Yes,
Betsy?
yes, sir. I know that there's a gentleman in the audience that wants to speak to the board, and I sure do hate for him to have to sit through all of this agenda item. So if it would be the pleasure of the board, can we move public comment to the very first of the meeting and have the public address us, and perhaps have that in the future too? And then if it's the pleasure of the board, also have a public comment at the end of it. You know, our citizens, they do comment on our agenda items as we go along after a motion and a second has been made. So particularly for today, I'd like to move public speaking to the very front of the agenda, if it's the pleasure of the
Do
board.
you want to bring back a separate, thank you, item to have two citizens to be heard? Or is you appropriate to do it right now?
We can just make the modification on the next agenda, but if you want to do it today, that's fine, and from
Want
now
it
on,
today,
it's
too?
practice.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we'll put two.
You don't need to raise your thing.
Oh, okay. I think I would recommend that the executive director have that. I don't know if you meet with the chairman, but I would certainly have that as a discussion item with the chairman rather than us taking that action today when both the chair and vice chair are not
Ooh, okay.
not here.
But just for today, we'll go ahead and...
Yeah,
And we could do
yeah.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, let's go straight to citizen comments then.
Rick Ashton.
Rick Ashton.
So, yes, so as he's coming up to the microphone, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Ashton. He's a personal friend of mine. He is a gentleman that has ridden the Continental Divide 3 times, championship, and he's an avid cyclist. He did Dirty Pecan with myself, Jack Costoa. No, that was a bike ride, and our executive director. And I'm sure what he wants to speak about is cycling.
Excellent.
Or something pertaining to, so Rick Ashton.
Thank you, Commissioner Barfield, very much for helping me out here. I'm a little bit off topic here, but I just want the board to be aware of a situation here in Leon County. I'm proposing that Proctor Road, the dirt part of Proctor Road between Centerville and Thomasville Road, be paved. Now, I've talked to my Commissioner Brian Deloge, and he indicates it's all about the money. I've given him some options that he could do it in stages, and he also indicated that they need to acquire more right-of-way for the runoff. I really don't believe that's necessary. Right now, you have a lot of dirt and sediment flowing into the ponds right now, the actual holding ponds that they have there. And in heavy rains, it overflows, so you got sediment flowing down through the basin from that point. If it's paved, it's going to be clean water going into that. And if it overflows, it'll be clean water going down the basin. They talk about the oil coming off of pavement that requires extra work to be done to filter it. I don't think that there'll be more oil coming off of pavement than it's already coming off of the packed clay road. But if it's done in stages, say 1 mile at a time, I think that the budget could find some more money for that. One other off topic is the regional, is the case of the invasive plants being spread along the right-of-way from public works facilities or the maintenance of the right-of-way shoulders. It used to be kudzu that would start in the right-of-way. They would bring in straw when work was done to stabilize the new right-of-way that's been torn up, and that straw carries in kudzu seed. And in the past, it started in the right-of-way. Right now, Kogan grass is the big culprit, and it starts in the right-of-way, where Public Works for all of your counties bring in this invasive seed that starts, and it spreads into the private property along the right-of-way. So that's just one other thing. But I just wanted you all to be aware of the situation out there on Proctor Road. You got thousands of people that live in the Northeast that need a cut through from Centerville Road over to Thomas Hill Road. You got the Northeast Park that's being developed out there. If it rains, that dirt part of Proctor Road is just impassable. So you have hundreds, if not thousands, of cars that use that dirt road. So it's very much needed to be paved. I appreciate your time. Any questions?
John?
Well, I appreciate you coming out. I seem to be the only Leon County Commissioner that's here today, so let me be the one to address you. And today is your lucky day, because the man that can answer every question that you need to know about Proctor Road is sitting right behind you, Mr. Tony Park, who is Director of Public Works. Tony? So all of the questions that you proposed today about the right-of-way and surface first flush coming off of the oils and everything, Tony's the one that can help you out with that, or at least point you in the right direction and bring you up to speed. I'm not fully knowledgeable on the cost of paving Proctor Road or what it would take to be able to do so, but you brought it up, and of course I'll follow up with Mr. Park as well. The other issue about the plant invasives, he's the one to talk to you. Tony can tell you what we're currently doing in the county anyway to help take care of the invasives as they come through. I'm not as knowledgeable on the day-to-day operations of how we do that, but we're lucky to have Tony sitting right there.
All right.
Yeah. Tony's probably going to cringe when I say this, but there is the option of cold mix asphalt, as you know, like you do on Oldville Highway. Mm-hmm. It's considered impervious by the state, so you don't have to treat the stormwater. It's not as good as pavement, but it's better than dirt. And it's exactly what you did on Old Woodville Highway when it was narrowly constrained.
Right.
But that's y'all's business. We haven't had real good luck with it down in McCullough.
The final comment would be Proctor Road is a county road, correct, Tony? Yeah. It's county road. So the appropriate body would be the county commission. Our next meeting is March 27th. We always have public comment at the beginning of our meetings as well. So if you want to come on out, love to have you come on out and go ahead on the record, and that's a great way to get the ball rolling, or at least get the conversation rolling as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Is there a motion to approve the consent?
So moved. Second.
Any objections? Excellent. Greg, you're up.
Actually, Jack just mentioned, I guess, a RAV4.
I'm sorry?
There's a RAV4 that's parked in one of the side slots at City Hall
Not mine.
that needs to be moved. If anybody's driving one.
Downstairs.
That might be me. I'm parked in a normal spot.
Did they say which?
Is it one of the red spots? It's very hard to figure out, trust me.
Yeah.
I about got
Visitor
busted
only.
myself.
I can go down and move it.
The red spots are up against the wall, you know, when you come in the elevator, the far wall this way, those are all, there was plenty of them there. They used,
being on the ground.
yeah,
Stripes.
they used to be on the other side of the building, which kind of threw me off when they moved them, but anyway, that's a different story.
Mr. Chairman, we've got a couple of items here Mr. Burke's going to present related to our priorities list for our transportation alternative priorities, as well as our transportation regional incentive program priority list as well.
Good afternoon, members. As you are aware, every year the CRTPA adopts project priority lists to provide the FDOT guidance as to this agency's transportation priorities as they move forward with the annual development of the state work program. Today, as Greg Slay discussed, we're actually going to be adopting two of those. The first list that we're actually going to be adopting is the Transportation Alternatives Project Priority List, or TAPPL, for those that like acronyms. Now, this list is actually a list in which the CRTPA manages the actual call for projects, and we do that every 2 years for TA projects. This year was one of the years where we actually solicited new transportation alternatives projects. In general, those types of projects are projects that actually provide funds for bike and ped, as well as other alternative transportation types of projects. With regards to the list we're considering today, which is fiscal year 2020 to 2024, Transportation Alternatives Project Priority List, we have 2 projects on there, one sponsored by the City of Tallahassee, the second one has been sponsored by Wakulla County, and we're seeking your approval of that list to provide to the FDOT.
Any objections? All right,
Mr. Chairman, just a quick
Sorry,
question.
Curtis?
This is the $310,000 that we've been appropriated?
Yeah, typically, we are dedicated at least $310,000 of TA funding. However, the FDOT has other types of TA funding at their discretion, and our agency has actually been pretty good in terms of receiving more funds annually on these types of projects.
Okay, so will these 2 projects be fully funded out of that 310, or will we be seeking additional funding to complete both of these projects?
Both of these projects currently have no funds on them from the FDOT. So we will actually be providing those to the DOT as they go through and develop the work program, and letting them know that these are our 2 project priorities for funding that they have identified for availability. We will ultimately find out which, if any of these projects receive funding when the draft work program is developed. That is typically presented to this board in the fall of this year.
Okay.
And Commissioner Richardson, also too, we usually work with DOT in terms of if there's not enough money, we may scale some of the projects back to shorten them, just whatever, usually work them within the amount of money that's available.
Okay, because I can tell you that Bluntstown project is sorely needed.
Yes,
I mean, if you look at the footpath, a lot of people use that where there is no sidewalk. It's desperately needed.
As Greg mentioned, the department's been very good in the past at supplementing that $300,000 because, quite frankly, that's not going to go very far.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was asking that question, because, I mean, 310 just didn't sound like a lot for those 2 projects.
Betsy?
Yes, sir. I want to address our adopted criteria that it looks like was adopted March 21st in 2016. I know that we had a super robust conversation about the criteria, and I'm not sure if it was this one or another one. And I noticed in number 7 criteria, it says leveraging of funds. Is there a commitment of local funding? The small counties felt like that we would be totally disadvantaged if that was put in there as part of the criteria. Many times we're pressed to even do our SIGP programs, and we're excused from scrap and scop matching with that. And it is very, very difficult for small counties to be able to put forth any money towards projects like this. And I would, if indeed that's what we did, I would like for us to readdress that. And I know that the small counties were just adamant about not having a maximum point for the leveraging there, because we're at a disadvantage. You have blueprint money, City of Tallahassee has money, Leon County has money, even Gaston County has got quite a bit more money than these 2 sitting right here. So I'm very concerned about that, because if you keep that leveraging of funds in there, it's going to be very difficult for a Jefferson and a Wakulla to rank in these projects. So I'd like for us to readdress that in the very near future and have a discussion about that. I just don't think that we're on even level ground on that, Mr. Chair.
And will number 1 project be completed before number 2 is started?
As we mentioned, neither of these projects have funding that has been put on them in the state work program. However, typically the CRTPA, being a MPO of over $200,000, when we get 200,000 population, a TMA, when we provide our project priority list to the FDOT, they are to actually work forward with our highest ranked projects. So typically, they would be looking for funding initially for our number one project. And if I could address briefly Commissioner Barfield's comment about the issue of providing a match. With regards to the two projects actually on this list, the Wakulla County project did not provide a match on this, and typically it is something when we solicit new projects, we will come back to the board, and next time we solicit new projects, we will definitely come back to you all with regards to the criteria and make sure that that issue is better addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. And is that the case with the other adopted criteria that we've used in the past? This isn't the only criteria that we've used. Is there other criterias when we're ranking other programs?
We have, for the CRTPA TA program, we have the 8 criteria, and those are the criteria that the TA subcommittee actually looks when they review the applications that we receive, those 8 criteria.
Okay.
And as you know, they all have different points associated with them.
Yeah, okay. So if we could take a look at that, like you said, that would be great. I think that would kind of even out that playing field. And it goes to the point of when Representative Bashir looks at things like this is some of the things that he looks at, you know, what is happening with the small counties and how difficult is it for them to be ranked in the programs. And he doesn't want us to be cobbled by not having the matching funds or funds able to come up with those projects.
I believe we had unanimous consent on that item.
You have not taken a vote yet.
Okay. Any opposed?
No, did we get a motion in a second? No,
Yeah, we got a motion.
Yeah, we have
So,
a motion. We
okay,
haven't
sorry.
voted, I don't think.
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess we'll just vote. All right, next item.
Okay, our second project priority list is the TRIP, or Transportation Regional Incentives Program list. To be considered eligible, projects have to be included in the CRTPA's regionally significant transportation map that was most recently identified by this board, adopted in September of 2016. Last year we had 2 projects on that list, one of which was funded, which was the Weems Road project. This year we have 1 project sponsored by the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency, and it's for Wolani Boulevard, specifically seeking design funds of $1.5 million for that project.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay, any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Greg?
Okay. Item 5C is our Draft Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. This is the document that serves as the CRTPA's work outline and budget for the next 2 years. By and large, the document remains unchanged. For the first fiscal year, we're looking at about $720,000 in PL funds. Those are the funds that are used directly in the day-to-day operations of the CRTPA. There's also some additional planning funds in there for projects like the Southwest area, Midtown. We're proposing to add, at least in this draft, and probably we'll have some added before the final draft, 2 new projects. One would be a feasibility study for the extension of the Monticello Trail in Jefferson County. That's coming out of the Jefferson County Bike Ped Master Plan. And then also looking at some potential improvements on US 27 in downtown Havana. That's a project that was identified as part of the 2040 RMP. That one is looking at some potential improvements to the corridor to enhance kind of the pedestrian network in there and help them with some of the issues that they're having related to their downtown. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll back up. Once this is approved today, we'll submit it to DOT and Federal Highway for approval, and then come back to you with a final draft probably in either April or May. I will tell you the budget will go up significantly because some of the projects, such as the Southwest Area Transportation Plan, we won't finish in this fiscal year, and those funds will roll forward to the next year. So I would, in terms of the budget, I would put it at very draft, and when you see the final version, that will be the final budget, of course.
Betsy?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to address the bike trail in Monticello, and we have had a discussion about it. It certainly needs a robust conversation about how we are going to accomplish that bike trail, because originally it was going to go through Simpson's Nursery, and they spray chemicals and they spray reclaimed water. close to that area. In addition to that, it's kind of it's an area that not much traffic. It's a little bit sketchy, just because there are no houses around that. So I've proposed a workaround to Mr. Slay about 6 months ago that I'd like for us to look at. And as an update, the old Drifton Highway, we did a road bond, almost $6 million road bond paving dirt roads, and that old Drifton Highway is on the list to resurface that. It's got millings and some of it's dirt. So we're definitely ready to help with that. We've got the funds. We can hold back, and our road bond's going to be 3 or 4 years in the working, and we can take that Drifton Highway and move that to the back end of it as we plan for the bike trail. As this board might know, Jefferson County was consolidated into a charter county, and they closed the elementary school that is downtown Monticello and moved everybody to 19, which is south of Monticello, about 4 miles by the interstate. So now all of our students from public schools in the public school system goes to that particular area where the terminus of that bike ped trail would be. So it's a little bit different, and we need to take that into consideration, and in consideration that we do have a little bit of money for the paving of that dirt road.
Yeah, and just to give the board members an idea, we just finished up the Wakulla Environmental Institute feasibility study. So we've got some folks here from Kimley-Horn that are going to present that. So we'd be looking at similar type work on this particular feasibility study.
Okay.
Our motion on this item?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Greg?
Okay. And speaking of that, John Sewell from Kimley-Horn.
I'm sorry, Suzanne?
Oh.
Forgive me, I didn't see your card.
I was just going to say, as you explore alternatives, if you would be interested in FDOT, you also could do an area of impact and some preliminary analysis for you, if you would like. So please contact us if you want us to do that.
Probably about 6 or 8 months ago, we initiated as I mentioned a few minutes ago, feasibility study for an extension of a trail from the coastal trail up to the Wakulla Environmental Institute, and John Sewell from Kimley-Horn is here to present the results of that study.
Is this an action item?
It's up to the board. It does not need to be. It's more of a discussion.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is John Sewell, and I'm with Kimley-Horn, and I'd like to kind of walk you through briefly the connection of the WEI, the Wakulla Environmental Institute, which is a component or a subsidiary, I guess, of Tallahassee Community College. Very unique location. I don't know if any of you folks have had the opportunity.
I've been there.
Merritt, I know you've been there a few times.
We had a meeting there.
CRTPA meeting.
That's right. You did have a meeting there. So you're aware of that facility and what significant future plans that facility has and what it'll really mean in terms of technical training, visitors coming in from outside of Tallahassee, Leon County, Wakulla County area, and probably even international visitors coming to that facility due to the unique natural features here in this part of North Florida. So it'll be an educational facility and it'll have international implications and exposure for the area. So it's important, I think, to kind of look at how the coastal trail, which is a part of the Capital City to Sea Trails system of trails, how that can actually connect up to WEI. While the Capital City to Sea Trails master plan was actually being developed, Bob Ballard, who's the executive director of WEI, was in the process of designing and planning the facility. And one of the things that he got very excited about was the fact that this trail was going to be coming so close by the facility. So what Mr. Ballard did was he actually built a connection up to US 319 as a part of the project. It's adjacent to the entry road going into the facility. He also built the facility that it supports being a bike trailhead. So it has shower facilities, outdoor, things like that, things to make it very friendly to outside users.
Just no bike trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, no bike trail.
And so the idea was sort of launched at that point. How could it be connected down to Coastal Trail, since Coastal Trail was one of the top priorities. And we're very proud to say at this point that there's asphalt on the ground out there on Coastal Trail.
It looks great.
Very exciting.
It's great.
Thank you, DOT, for working with the design team to actually meander that trail through the trees. I thought it was just a really great end result from all of that hard work. So this project is to connect WEI to that facility. Kind of just looking at it roughly, but there are, obviously the St. Mark's Trail is 32 miles in length. We've got a connection that's incomplete from the trailhead up into downtown, but eventually it will connect all the way into Capitol Cascades Park. We've got the Ocklawackee Bay Trail section in McCullough County that's already been built. So the Coastal Trail, when it kind of connects all those pieces together, we're talking about a trail that goes from the Capitol all the way down to the bay of about somewhere around 60 to 65 miles of trail, and you could probably even throw in some Monticello Trail into that, which is 1.5 miles. So it's a really, it will ultimately end up being one of the longest ones in the Southeast. One of the goals of this project, though, is to also connect a lot of the communities around north of Coastal Trail that are in between Coastal Trail and WEI, and so I'll talk about that here in a minute. We talked to some stakeholders. We talked to McCullough County staff. We involved them in a workshop. We worked with Bob Ballard, TCC staff. We also met with Wakulla Middle School officials, and late in the process, we discovered that one of the key parcels in this study was actually bought from foreclosure. It was in bank ownership by a gentleman by the name of John Schuff, who's a resident of Wakulla County. And so we reached out to him late in the process, and I'll talk about the options that kind of came from those discussions. To kind of give you just a flavor of this, though, I'll see if I can move my cursor here. We are really looking at a menu of options for making these connections because there's limited right-of-way in the study area. Like any trail study that we do, the goal always is to have this option, the shared use path option, that, just to be clear, 12-foot wide asphalt, just like the St. Mark's Trail is today. So it's separated and it's the most safe facility that we can put down. Another option that we can use in limited right-of-way is a shared use path adjacent to a roadway that would incorporate some type of vertical separation between the trail and the roadway. And really the third option, when we're really we don't have any other options, is the SHARO, or the shared lane use marking. We have to use that in less than 35 miles an hour situations, which we do have in this study area. It's the least desirable option just because it's a multi-use trail that we're trying to create here, and we need to be reflective of the fact that these might be families with kids using the trail, and frankly the SHARO just isn't really good for that. So we try to avoid that one if we can. Picture on the left actually should probably be updated since there's actually asphalt down there. That's the Coastal Trail, which is what we're trying to connect to. So real quickly, we've got some options on this map. I just want to orient you real quick, but obviously this is the St. Mark's Trail that comes down. We've got our Coastal Trail connection from County Road 59, which is Lighthouse Road, that goes down to the lighthouse in the St. Mark's Wildlife Preserve. Coastal Trail kind of meanders along 98 all the way down, connects into Ocklawackee Bay right here. That's 13 miles of trail there. This is roughly 28. This is rawly 32. So yeah, it's pretty significant. And then the WEI facility is right smack dab in the middle on the south end of Crawfordville, right in this area right here. So this project is to connect those two. So we looked at what the options were. The goals are always to be in public right-of-way if we can. Public spaces, connect communities and schools to the facility as much as we can. So we came up with 3 options, and then I have a 4th modifier option at the end that I'll talk about. I'll walk you through each one of these as I go along. I need to grab my glasses for this part of it. The first option alternative A, basically meanders along the privately owned property. It goes through the WEI, this is WEI right here, along private property, within private property, the John Schuff parcel, if you will, or the other option is it could actually be in the school property, which it would have to be fenced off, but it would be separate from the school, and then Wildwood Drive, and then connecting into US 98. Again, the Wildwood section most likely would be a shared lane use market. The rest of it could all be multi-use path. Now, the property owners along the way here see the benefit of the trail, so we don't really see that being a barrier per se. We would probably need to do a little bit more stakeholder work with the neighborhoods just to make sure everybody understands what's entailed with that. But basically, this is a good option. It's a short option. It's a cost-effective option. The next option is B. Now, B is different in that we would actually go straight through the John Schuff property, which is an option. It's not off the table. And then connect in through an access point that, frankly, he wants, which connects into Jean Drive. And again, Jean Drive would end up being a shared lane use marking or a Sharrow, and then Wildwood, and then connecting into 98. Mr. Schuff, just to kind of give you a sense of where he is with his development, he has not submitted any development proposal yet to the county. He's still kind of working through the details of how he's going to get access to his parcel. But he is open to modifying his design plans to accommodate the trail to a certain extent. The next alternative is C. It's a longer option, but it does really provide some good connections through the neighborhoods. This option relies on the use of a private road, which we would need to work through an easement to acquire that. This one is probably a little bit more of a challenging option, but it does work really well in terms of connecting the middle school and the community park. It gets a lot of use down there on the southern part of the county, which is Meadowlark Recreational Park, and then connecting into 98. And then really the sort of the last option that was developed more recently with discussions with Mr. Schuff is connecting through his property, connecting through an additional property owner, Mr. Gaby, who Mr. Schuff is actually working with on his development for a roadway access through the property. And this one actually is a very good option in that it connects a lot of the community to the trail, and it actually provides a good connection over to 319. So this one is actually one that is not yet fully been fleshed out due to the schedule of this project concluding, and the fact that those discussions probably will continue on. This one couldn't fully be vetted out. So based on all of these four options, all of these options really depend on finalizing right-of-way related to the corridors themselves. The bottom line is that we actually have, I would say, three very good, viable options, and we'll have to wait and just kind of find out what the final development scenario is there with a couple of those private property owners. But once those plans are finalized, I think at that point, staff can go ahead and finalize the plans to move forward with a selected option. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you all have at this time.
John, I'm pretty sure there's a sewer or water easement that goes from the middle school straight out to the 98 too.
That's correct. That is correct. And we did look at that. We did look at that option. We did hear that from Mr. Edwards.
Okay. He would know about it.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, I have a question. You know, I was looking at this in terms of how much of it is through neighborhoods and how much Sharrow you'd have to use, because I'm not a fan of Sharrows, I have to admit. But no one knows what's going to happen to Mr. Shuff's property, is that correct?
He's, no. I mean, the answer is no. However, the good news is that he has recognized the benefit of the trail to his development.
Right.
I mean, he's talked about everything from having he wants to have a cul-de-sac type arrangement where the access will come from the north down and it'll be cul-de-sac at the southern end of that parcel. He's even talked about having a sidewalk or pedestrian connection through that to the trail.
Okay.
So he recognizes the value of it. He just hasn't really fully vetted out his development scenario yet.
But you think he'd probably, at the very least, he'd probably be putting this behind the houses, so he'd be able to use the, excuse me, the first picture where it's just the multi-use path.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay, all right, thank you. How long is that piece of property? Your yellow line that's the vertical along the side of his property, how much distance is that?
I mean, I don't have the exact measurements with me, but I'm just going to say that that's probably 1/8 of a mile.
Okay, I
Pretty
just
short
wanted,
section.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I think John needs a comp plan amendment on this, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
So he'd probably be pretty motivated to.
Yes, he does. He does need a comp plan amendment, and we also impressed upon him that, you know, having the trail scenario kind of built into this would certainly probably help him with that.
This would take care of his recreational facility requirement of comp plan amendment.
That's correct.
And his green space?
And I think it's, you know, I'm just one guy talking, but integrating the rec park into it, I think is, I know it's a lot
Yeah.
bigger of a pain in the butt, but
You know, that
a lot of
one was-
people use that rec park.
And that
I mean, a
was,
lot.
I think if we all had our druthers, that would be the one, but there's a lot more private property involved in that one, getting through those. I don't think they're technically flag lots, but there's a lot more private property involved in option B, I believe it was, John?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually looking at option C. It would be
Or
most,
C,
C is the option, and one of the, you know, I guess I didn't mention that.
Only
I'll go
private
back to
property
that. One of the great
involved.
options
Little
about
stretch,
C
that's a right of way.
is when you actually walk out
Kevin
there
Gaby
and
owns
you
it, though.
look at this park.
built that house right there.
Actually is around the outer edges of the park, there's a lot of available land that isn't being used for park purposes. And the way we looked at it is potentially what you could have is you could either have the fence on the outside of the trail, or you could move the fence in and have the trail on the outside, because there is a fence now. So it's really just a matter of moving some of those facilities, but there is a really nice perimeter around that would make a nice connection.
And just
to the neighborhoods.
Just a thought, but
Yeah.
if Castora will run all the way out to 319, you could cut off that whole part on 319 itself from Castora south to the high school.
Correct.
And they could just go through this cutoff basically, and it'd save all that construction on the main road.
Yes, that is true. Okay.
Any other questions?
So, one last question. The shortest distance and the longest distance of the proposed route?
Yeah, so the longest distance is C, and the shortest distance is this one, A.
And then what are those measurements?
I don't have the exact measurements with me, but,
Ballpark?
oh, there we are. Yeah, they put them right on the bottom there. This one is 1.4, oh, I went the wrong way. 1.45 and 2.1.
Not
So
too
they're
bad.
all relatively the same, and then depending on how much is multi-use trail versus shared lane use marking, those have a very different cost per mile. The multi-use trail can run 300 to 500,000 a mile, whereas the shared lane use marking can be, you know, 30,000 to 40,000 a mile. So it's a big difference.
Okay, very
And
good.
the county may be willing to shift those roads, because there is, I think, 60 feet of right-of-way there. We could shift the road bed over a little bit.
Yeah, and that's another, I guess, as time goes on, another consideration that should be made is just the resurfacing schedule.
All right, is there a motion to accept
Move to accept.
proposal?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, let me get back to where we're going here, Greg. All right, DOT report. Suzanne, that's you? That's my agenda
I
there.
don't have anything to report this
Good
week.
report.
Thank you.
Greg?
Stop it.
Unfortunately, I've got a couple of things, but I'll be brief. As you all saw with the chain of emails running around for me the last couple of days of the session, the MPO kind of restructuring plan made one last attempt to go through in the waning days, but was voted out or kicked out, whatever you want to call it. So that's something we will be monitoring coming up in the next session. We thought it was kind of unusual that it kind of died off for about 2 months, and then pretty much at the last minute kind of popped up to the surprise of quite a few people. But again, we'll be monitoring that as the next session comes up. And then briefly, just want to touch on the Southwest Area Plan. We met with Blueprint staff the last couple of weeks to kind of talk about where we go from here now that the IA's made their decisions regarding the gateway, the airport gateway. What we've decided is go ahead and at least move Orange Avenue forward as part of that process, because now we're kind of running along with DOT and their selection process for the PD&E consultant. Once we work that corridor through, we'll circle back around and work on Lake Bradford, South Lake Bradford, and Spring Hill Road. But right now, because of the schedule that DOT's on with the Orange Avenue PD&E, we think it's probably more important to go ahead and kind of get that corridor done, get some information down on that, and be able to pass that on to DOT once they get the PD&E started, which we're assuming is probably the last quarter of the year. Suzanne, by the time the work actually starts.
Yes, before the work actually starts.
And
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I had.
Is there any other citizen comments? Anything from board members? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that.